Welcome to Pompously Political.
Can we just admit that religion's fucking crazy?
One may ask himself, what does it mean to be batshit crazy?
The political podcast is just a little bit pompous.
If you're apostolic, you have to go get on your knees at the altar, which always sounds really funny with me.
In this episode, we cover the news and other stuff.
It's just a little gentle ribbing, for your pleasure, if anything.
And now here's your host, Jimmy and Scott.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and this is another edition of the Pompously Political Podcast. And as you can see, we are sans Scott. There's a little French terminology there for you. Sans is, and that's Scott's not with us because he's got life issues, baby issues, and so forth. And so we are joined by he's been on here before, so I'll let him introduce himself.
Hey, this is Book. I'm guest hosting today on Pompously Political. I'm super excited to be here with you, Jimmy.
Yeah, sounds good. Let me real quick. I got to look something up real quick. So why don't you go ahead and start off with a little bit of the news?
Nice prep work. Okay. So I think what we were planning on focusing on here at the top of the show, obviously everyone's aware of the recent uptick in violent extremism, terrorist events in Paris and Beirut last week, with 43 people killed in a bombing in Beirut, and then 129 people gunned down and bombed in Paris, along with the Russian plane that has been confirmed to have been blown up by what Russian officials are calling a homemade bomb. 224 lives lost there. Really, really tragic, kind of intense couple of weeks, really, especially this last weekend.
I think the first thing that I remember hearing was of the plane going down, and that it was speculated that it was ISIS driven, is what they were saying that it was, but they hadn't confirmed it yet. So that's kind of interesting. And then of course, the tragic events in Beirut. It was how many bombs
In Beirut?
Yeah.
I believe it was just one bomb. 43 people killed. Obviously, one big criticism that the media is getting right now is that everyone's focusing so much on Paris, which I think I've definitely fallen victim to. I've wanted to really look into the Beirut situation a lot more, but I mean, Paris has really overshadowed it because they're kind of one of our main allies, and I think that unfortunately in this country we have a stronger emotional pull towards the City of Lights getting blown up as compared to the Beirut, which I'm not saying that's right or wrong, but Beirut is 43 killed there. ISIS or Daesh,
which they were trying to the whole reason why they were going with Daesh, or however you say that name, was that they were trying to differentiate between the Islamic extremist group that is ISIS and normal Islam, which ISIS of course is Islamic State, and so they were trying to differentiate that between the two, and so then that's why they started calling it Daesh. It's sort of a political correctness sort of thing, basically to kind of differentiate.
So Daesh would be like the people, like the political organization that is carrying out these attacks, and like ISIL or ISIS would be like the state.
Well, no, it's
the caliphate. Or?
It's the same. ISIS, ISIL, and Daesh are one and the same. It's just that they've changed the name. They've changed the name as far as what they're calling them in order to differentiate between Islamic extremism and Islam as a whole. It's a political correctness tool that they've been using throughout the White House and just overall.
They pull this all the time. They've changed their name like 1,000 times.
Right.
And ISIS. We're just gonna stick with ISIS. No
Right.
Daesh or Dash or
Right.
whatever, however the hell you want to pronounce it.
Yeah, it's simply it is just a political correctness, or in order to maintain political correctness is why they started using that term. What's interesting, with specifically with the topic of Paris and in Syria, particularly where ISIS is located, is in Syria and also in Iraq, portions of those countries. Was that the bombers or the attackers that were in Paris, one of them was reported as saying, "This is for Syria," or multiple ones were saying, "This is for Syria." And one of the things I was actually learning in one of my classes today, which because we've been talking about it heavily, and because it's so in your face, and it also ties into Beirut, and Beirut, Lebanon, right, is the country. So apparently France used to have Syria. They used to control Syria and also Lebanon. And so that some believe that when they said this is for Syria, they were meaning the French occupation.
The colonization of
Right.
Syria and Lebanon.
And that they've been calling upon that, and then they've been, in some aspects, the reason why they chose the Bataclan Theater in Paris was because it was a soccer match between France and England, and they were also having an American concert playing there. Was the other thing.
Really? They had a concert and a
Right.
football match?
Right. It was the Eagles of Death Metal or something.
Oh, yeah.
Some band was there.
Oh, I heard that the merchandise manager
Right. Was killed.
got killed. I thought he was just like there
Right.
on vacation.
So
I
if you look at it historically, that they chose those to basically, because these were all the Western powers that they wanted to lash out against. But on top of that, why did they attack in Lebanon? Because of the French occupation over there, and then furthermore their occupation of Syria. And so it's an apparent reclamation of Islamic territory. It's weird sort of thing, and it's tragic on multiple levels.
And what I don't understand about it, I mean, I get that. I mean, let's just play around with this idea a little bit. We'll thought experiment here. We're ISIS here, okay? We're ISIS. We're taking over parts of eastern Syria and western Iraq, and that's where we want to create our caliphate. And so we want to be recognized as a sovereign nation that functions under Sharia law and whatever form of government that our caliphate is going to function under. And I get, taking territory and all that and expanding your reach and power, but at the same time, why not just stop there? I understand that there's a lot of animosity towards the West, and that, of course, they hate a lot of aspects of Western culture, and not to mention all the implications that the Iraq War is brought to that region. But why are they stretching themselves so thin? Why lash out at France, which is gonna rattle the entire Western democracies as a whole, and they already have Russia on their tail. They're battling Assad. Then the United States is helping with bombing, and now they're just ramping everyone up. It seems like they're trying to drag us into a bigger fight, and I don't understand what the end goal is.
Well, because you're looking at it from a secular Western point of view, in the sense that they're fighting a war of ideology, is why they're doing what they're doing.
Yeah, but do they really think that they're gonna convince other people to not bomb the shit out of them and kill every single one of them?
They want to. They want to because this is the global jihad that is promised within the text.
So
of
is the
Quran.
end goal then for all of them?
Just like the Christians that are
killed, like-
pushing for Armageddon, we have Muslims that are pushing for Armageddon. The problem itself is the flaw within the text. And I believe that people
I think that you're sort of speculating though. I don't know. I mean, we'd have to have someone from ISIS.
if anybody from ISIS,
What's the end goal, man? What are you trying to get at?
No,
because that's one thing that I've been like kind of thinking about is like, if we were to sit down with a representative from ISIS, like not just like freaking Joe Blow ISIS man from the street, but like a higher up ISIS official, and say like, okay, in the perfect ISIS scenario, what's the end goal? Do you really want to have like your perfect Islamic state with like, you know, everyone living under Sharia law and like apple pies on windowsills and like, I mean, eventually don't they imagine some sort of peaceful caliphate? I mean, like Islamic paradise?
they want that, but the goal of Islam is to make everyone under the banner of Islam.
Of extremism.
Of extremist Islam, correct. So when you say, okay, ISIS or Daesh or whatever Kool-Aid flavor of the week you are today,
ISIL. IS.
yeah. If you were to sit down with them and say, what are your goals? What are you trying to achieve with the Islamic State? Obviously, to establish a caliphate, which they've done with the territory they've carved out in Syria and in Iraq, because of that power vacuum that used to be there. You know what I mean? They're now filling that void. Which that goes into the whole aspect between Sunni and Shiites. The Sunnis were being basically oppressed upon, and so they basically were like, fine, come on in, ISIS, and allowed it to happen. Is how they were able to roll in the territories in Iraq. But the thing about it is, so they got their caliphate, right? So they got that. So now what's their goal? Is to expand that out to the rest of the world, specifically to the Western world.
But they don't have it on lockdown. I mean, like a really key highway was taken by Western forces.
Right.
Like, what is it, Raqqa? That's their like their hub, their main headquarters. Like, and I don't know all the cities. I don't know. I'm just some asshole who like is sort of paying attention. So that there's
That's
Raqqa
why we're pompous.
and Mosul are like the highway between those two communities. It's a nice little apple pie in every. Those communities have been cut off from one another, or you know, some main supply chain has been cut. And I mean, you would think that they'd want to shore up their territory, like recover a little bit, and then start planning something major.
Well, that would be the sound strategy.
Yeah,
but again, you're looking at it from a perspective of how you fight a traditional war.
Yeah.
They're looking at it as, okay, we need to secure our territory. At the same time, we need to attack the Western aggressor. Because they're basically taking what used to be the Blitzkrieg and they're putting that to effect.
Well, let's also take into account, like, there's a lot of eager young men who are really jive to start to make their point, to martyr themselves, to you know.
Well, now here's an interesting question, because you brought up recruitment, and that's one of the issues that we're having with an organization like ISIS. Is they've been really effective at recruitment.
Yeah.
Do you think that that some of the policies within countries like France, within countries like Germany, United States, the UK, the way that we treat Islamic people within our population, do you think that in itself is a successful recruiting tool for ISIS, as far as are we helping or hindering the cause?
I think that if you're like a disenfranchised young Muslim in the United States who maybe has some pretty radical influences online, and like you're really mad about the Iraq war, that you might be susceptible to some of these things. But it's interesting to me that in the United States, there's been hundreds of people who have flown over to Syria to help fight for the cause. But then I heard in France, and I don't know, we should probably look this up, and I don't know.
We can definitely post a link on it.
Yeah, that there's like thousands of people in France and in the UK that have, and I don't know if it's just because of proximity. And I know that like ISIS requires new recruits to have like a substantial amount, like 3 months worth of cash flow to support themselves when they get there. And like they're not like setting them up all sweet, like you just show up, buddy, and well, you got a bed waiting for you. Like, I mean, it takes
somebody has to die before you get to bed.
It takes a bit of work to get there. So I don't know if it's just maybe like economically difficult for Americans to go over, and that's the reason that not as many or maybe we don't treat. I mean, and I don't know, this is a controversial statement, but maybe we don't treat Muslims as bad in this country as they do in some European countries, because like France is like ban the burqa and like.
Well, even in there was a monumental case within the Canadian Supreme Court of but there was a lady. Yeah, it's delicious. Yeah, if you want to plug them, and maybe somebody can.
Sockeye Powerhouse Porter, delicious chocolatey coffee taste, sure to make you burp and give you a dry mouth during your podcast.
Idaho handcrafted. But from that perspective, there was a monumental case that took place in Canada where a lady was not able to wear her religious headgear, and she won the case. She won it in the Canadian Supreme Court.
Yeah.
So. Yeah, you could say that, but at the same time, Canada has had some people defect and go over to ISIS or be recruited by ISIS. And to a certain extent, I think you're right with the proximity thing. I think that because they are closer, I mean, you have people like Jihadi John, who was just recently killed, who is essentially the face and the PR of the ISIL or
like one of the most brutal, grossest people.
Right. I think he was in a lot of the beheading videos.
Yeah.
So yeah, he's a terrible human being, and I'm glad he's dead.
Yay.
But he was from the UK.
Uh-huh.
So you have individuals that come from these areas that are prominent in this movement, and it could also be because maybe they have larger populations of Muslims.
Uh-huh.
I don't know for sure. I don't have like a census going on. I'm not
this
like
is just
pompous
pulling things out of our ass.
That's what we do.
How we half read the headlines of articles and like talk while we're listening to NPR, and then we report on the issues, folks.
Right.
That's what we're here. 2 Yakovs in Idaho.
Now with that Russian plane, going into that, it obviously spurred a moment where it got Russian involvement into the crisis in essentially in Syria, with the promise that they were going to attack ISIS targets, and they ended up attacking rebel targets of the rebels that are fighting Assad.
Uh-huh.
So they basically said, "This is what we're going to do," and then they did their own thing anyways. And they afterwards,
in true Russian style, they haul off and we're not going to do anything wrong. Don't worry, we're good. And then,
and then they
Crimea what? What are you talking about?
Crimea River?
Yeah. No, we're not doing nothing.
So, of course, with that, it definitely got somewhat of a Russian involvement in the area. On top of that, of course, then you have the incident in Paris, of which then got...
Which is ramping up European involvement.
Right, which they dropped 20 bombs on a town in Syria.
Mm-hmm.
That, of course... Some of the local people were outraged because it was indiscriminate bombing. There was no precision strike here. It was essentially a lash out at what the Islamic State did, with little regard of human life. Essentially,
that's where France is right now. There,
right, and they got the intel from the United States. So that's kind of our part to play in that.
What intel? The bombing intel, or like the
That
bomb,
ISIS
or?
was using that as somewhat of a headquarters, and that's why it was picked as a target.
Hmm.
And I think we also supplied aircraft to allow
Mm-hmm.
for the bombings. So we played an essential part in helping with that. Does the end justify the means in that sort of endeavor? If you had the chance of rooting out ISIS at the expenditure of indiscriminate loss of life in that area, in that region, what do you think on that? That's a loaded
So
question.
if I was a world leader,
right,
and I was like the president of France, and
let's Frank Underwood this for a minute.
I'm all upset right now, and I want to deliver a knockout blow to ISIS as soon as possible. And I don't know. I was listening to Lindsey Graham on NPR earlier talk about how if he becomes president, and if it were up to him, he would obviously amp up the war and really go after ISIS, send troops, do whatever it took. And I mean, to me, it just sounds like genocide. It sounds like it's a never-ending conflict. You kill one asshole and you radicalize 10 more. Like you don't solve the problem with more violence. Like that's part of the reason that I was like thinking about this, like what's your end game ISIS idea? Was like because like initially when this whole thing started, when Syria turned from like a revolution to a civil war to total chaos, like there was an idea that was floating around about basically Iraq and Syria kind of redrawing the lines on the map and having like a multi-state solution where like we can have Kurdistan and then like a Sunni state and a Shiite state. And I mean, even if ISIS wants to have their crazy ass caliphate, like let them have it, as long as they're like not bombing Europeans or Americans or anyone else for that matter. Like my idea, if I were a world leader and I had to solve this problem, I would be pulling refugees out of there, letting all these other countries that want to meddle in there do it. I would be super like I would be pacifist. I would be complete pacifist. I would try and just avoid that whole situation and try to do as much humanitarian aid as possible. But we're the world police, and like everyone's and like Lindsey Graham's going on about how France is sitting there waiting for us to get involved, and like they're not going to do anything until we lead them in there, and then we'll make them do it. And it's like, really? Is that how it's going to work? We're just going to I mean, technically that is how it happened if we told them where to bomb and they bombed. I mean, but at the same time, like, God, do we really want to get involved with this much more? I mean, the risk of us, we're going to be attacked again. That's just how it is. There's going to be another terrorist attack in the United States. It's just going to happen. There's too many hotspots in the world, and there's too much opportunity
for
many bad things to happen.
There's too many variables.
And
Essentially, in order to make it to where you would have no sort of attack on American soil, would be to essentially start taking away civil liberties.
Exactly.
And how much are you willing to sacrifice?
So many people. We'd have to just like Holocaust level, just like kill everyone and their family.
Which brings me to
we
another
need to like
point.
be the good guys consistently for a long time, take our blows, and like just keep on trucking with peace. And
which brings me to another point of some of the population of Muslims that have obviously it kind of echoes the sentiments of Pearl Harbor in France, that the Islamic population that's there now is getting treated very harshly by the rest of the population because of the situation. Now, while I'm under the belief that Islam, the faith of Islam, is inherently to blame for the actions of an organization like this, because they're basing their ideology on the tenets of their faith. Whether it is interpreted to mean such, they're still interpreting. They're getting those beliefs from the tenets of their faith. So while I criticize the faith of Islam because it breeds this sort of extremism, right? But at the same time, normal people, normal population, everyday people just happen to be Muslim, don't deserve harsh treatment. You know what I mean? And I think that when you have an incident like this, it opens the door for anti-Semitism, discrimination, racism, a lot of those ugly words that then get associated with criticizing Islam for the problems that it has.
Well, yeah, I think that all religions have like a lot of ugliness that can be misconstrued and perverted to use to justify terrible things. And I think that there's, a lot of that in Islam. But at the same time, I think that that entire region has been blighted with so much awful shit when it comes to bombing and like extreme poverty, just instability at every turn. Like there's nothing, and of course, like, I mean, that's where the radicalness comes from. They turn the only thing that they got in a lot of cases is like their religion. And then if at the same time they have clerics that are like, oh man, these bad guys are coming in, ruining our land, like killing us. And look, right here in our holy book, it says we should do something about it, and we should not hold back. And I think that if the United States were like super duper poor and had like a lot of oil, and we were getting like taken advantage of, and we were all like just super redneck, like kind of backwoods people with clinging to our religion, like not saying that everyone in the Middle East is redneck people clinging to their religion, but like
I think that's what you said.
But I'm just saying, like, if you're super poor and all you got is your religion and violence all around you, you can find plenty of things in the Bible. So if the shoe was in the other, if the foot was in the other shoe, or what I'm saying is, if
the shoe is on the other foot,
whatever. You know what I know. And yeah, then I think that in a parallel universe, like there are two Muslim dudes or secular used to be Muslim dudes sitting down saying, those Christians and their religion,
right.
I mean, it breeds all kinds of terrible ideas, and it's just a violent religion. Like I think that there could be a parallel universe like that.
Right. But what I'm kind of alluding to with what I'm saying is that oftentimes, and it's an argument that Bill Maher certainly made, and Sam Harris has made a similar argument in the sense that when it comes to criticizing Christianity, it's acceptable. When it comes to criticizing a lot of things, it's acceptable. But for whatever reason, within the liberal community, when it comes to criticizing Islam, it suddenly becomes an issue about race. See what I mean?
No, I'm 100% on board. We've had this conversation so many times.
Right.
And like, I agree completely. Like, I mean, look at like wealthy countries like Saudi Arabia, where like women can't drive and they behead people on the streets all the time for like petty crime.
An 87-year-old went to jail for drinking a beer.
Yeah. And like Dubai, terrible shit like that happens all the time. Like, there's a lot of tenets of religion that are awful. But I mean, God, there could, and I agree with Sam Harris, and like, I agree, like, I mean, you can pervert the religion, and if the Bible Belt was able to like take over and like have our own like Christian Sharia,
our own Christian caliphate.
Shit, yeah, that like that there'd be people like getting their hands cut off and their eyes poked
President
out.
Lindsey Graham.
Yeah, no, more like President Huckabee.
Oh yeah.
President Huckabee has just made an executive order that an eye indeed for an eye.
Speaking of religious extremism. We'll kind of segue into our next topic. I know it's a loaded thing when it comes to
One more thing though.
Okay.
One more
I'll
little
let you have the
topic
last word on
on Syria
Okay.
and the terrorist attacks. And like I just want to spend like a minute on this, but I think it's one of the most important things.
You're the guest here.
The Syrian refugees. One of the first things I said to you when you called me after the Paris attacks was, "Oh my God, this is going to change everything for the Syrian refugee crisis."
Yes.
And we have a bunch of Republican governors. There might be a Democrat in there too. I'm not sure. And so far, I've only heard of Republican governors announcing that they are going to try and block any acceptance of Syrian refugees.
It's mainly southern states: North Carolina, Texas,
Idaho.
Alabama.
Governor Butch Otter has signed on.
Butch Otter now.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep. And yeah,
hates the gays, hates Muslims, hates everybody.
That was the first thing I thought was like those poor, like that. And this is where I'm uncomfortable with the whole Sam Harris. I agree intellectually with the Sam Harris thing, but like at the same time, when emotions are high like this, people run with it. People run with it,
Right.
And that's where the left people get, but then the left gets oversensitive with it, and that's where it gets all murky and stupid and crazy. But at the same time, like I really wish that like listeners or anyone would urge lawmakers to stand with Obama and bring these refugees in, because like these are normal human beings just like anyone else who are trying to escape the violence, and we should help them.
We actually, because you brought the topic of the child that drowned.
Yeah.
He was a Syrian refugee.
Yep.
And we actually featured that on the podcast because of Eric's the one that initially gave us that story. So if you tuned into that story, we have this conversation outside of the podcast arena where it gives us lots of ideas here. And so we have instances like that to where it humanizes us. And how quick are we to
just turn around and be like, oh
Right.
no, one of them might be a terrorist.
Right.
And like that was a conversation before Paris too. And like that's a legitimate concern. But at the same time, you kind of get the bad with the good. And we're gonna have to just deal with it. I'm sorry to say that. Like there's no perfect situation. It's complete chaos. And to be the bigger, more virtuous person is to stand up and like take these people in and not just, let these people be freaking led to the slaughterhouse. So that's all I have to say.
Well said. Speaking of individuals that are now ostracized and disenfranchised, the Mormon Church has, I wouldn't say changed their stance on homosexuality, but it's certainly galvanized their stance.
Double down, if not triple down.
Right.
There.
On their stance of because obviously in opposition to the Supreme Court ruling on same-sex marriage, they've reiterated within their policy that they disagree with the homosexual lifestyle, and on top of that, they've now outlined that members that are homosexual are considered apostates, and children of homosexual couples or same-sex couples are now unable to get baptized, unable to get blessings from the church, unable to hold callings until the age of 18, at which time they have to disavow their parents' relationship. They have to basically distance themselves from their family in order to become a member, which certainly came at a good time, because we had a month prior to that, maybe 2 months, put in our formal resignation from the Mormon Church. So Eric and myself, part of the reason why he was invited on, besides him being a knowledgeable, intellectual person, is the fact that we both share a common.
I'm just above stupid, but I'm paying attention. I wouldn't call myself an intellectual person, and I introduce myself as Boog. So Jimmy keeps saying Eric. That's also that's my AKA. That's my thug name. I wanted to use my professional name, Boog.
Okay. All right. So Boog, we'll go by Boog. I've known you for Boog forever, and you know me as James forever, and now we're sloths.
Now we're Jimmy and Boog.
I know, it's weird. Jimmy and Eric.
I don't know. Whatever.
So the Mormon Church has come out with this policy right around the time that Eric and I have both put in our resignations from the Mormon Church. So we were prior Mormons not very good ones for a long time. So we kind of have some insights as church.
I was a convert. Is that you were a convert?
I was a convert as well.
Yeah.
I
So,
came home from school and my mom said, "Hey, we're Mormons now."
Yeah.
That's
and
what happened to me.
I lived in my family moved in with my grandparents in a really Mormon neighborhood, and my entire peer base,
Your social group.
my social colleagues of my age were all Mormon kids, and they invited me to go to Mutual, which is every like Wednesday night we get together, have like a little bit of scripture study, and then play games. And so then
It's kind of like a youth group,
yeah,
almost like Boy Scouts, but
and it was
not
super fun.
nature-oriented.
I way enjoyed that, and yeah, it's loosely related to Boy Scouts because at Mutual we plan what we're doing for Boy Scouts, and then I think either Friday or Saturday we meet for like our official Scout meeting.
And you get to
And-
mingle with the female congregation as well in Mutual.
Yeah.
That was what always excited about me. It was like, God, finally.
I get to see girls. But it was fun. It was really fun, and I way enjoyed that. And then they started sending missionaries over. My sister got baptized, and my brother and I followed suit shortly afterwards. But it was really, honestly, it was like kind of a social thing for me. And like, I never really drank the Kool-Aid because I always thought it was weird that when like the first Sunday of each month is called testimony meeting. And
Right. Fast and testimony, because the Mormon church, you don't eat for that day.
Oh, really? I always ate.
Fast and testimony meeting where you're not supposed to eat.
So on
and fast
Sunday,
every day.
the congregation gets together and they it's basically open mic at church. And you go up and you like talk about what the faith means to you, what's going on in your life. And then at the end of it, you say something to the effect of, like, I know Joseph Smith is a true prophet. I know this church is true in the name of Jesus Christ. Amen. And like, I always thought that was weird. Like, why the hell do we have to constantly reaffirm that I know this church is true?
And there's a competition of how meaningful you can say that at the end of your talk.
Yeah.
I mean, like,
I
know this church is true. And it's like you always see those really convicted people. And of course, when they you get returned missionaries to come,
Mm-hmm.
and
it's like, I really know it's true now.
Right.
Because I got the fucking door slammed on my face 1,000 times. It's super true, guys. Yeah. It's crazy. So I always thought that was kind of funny. I never really because I've never been to any other church. I've been to a lot of churches, and I've never been to another church that was like
you and I have a similar
constantly
background.
saying, I know this church is true.
You and I have a similar
I
background.
know this church is true. I just know it. And
Yeah,
it's like that was like built into it.
it's weird.
Joseph Smith made sure. And this is, the whole, basically what upsets me about the policy, the whole reason I resigned was because I know the church isn't true, first off, but I never really had any intention of resigning. But the whole the Proposition 8 thing, and then just more and more revelations about Joseph Smith, and just kind of the shenanigans that guy listen to Naked Mormonism podcast. It's a fantastic podcast by this guy Bryce Blankenagel.
It's on iTunes and Stitcher, right?
Yeah, and he breaks down. He's done his 1-year anniversary episode, which is 7.5 hours long, and I'm most of the way through it, and he really he digs into the history of the church and of Joseph Smith, and it's insane. It's crazy how gross this is, and I didn't really care. If you want to be Mormon, I'm totally cool with that. I enjoyed my experience when I was Mormon, and luckily I didn't go on a mission or anything. I moved away and kind of experienced other ways of thinking. I got away from the indoctrination, and I came back to Idaho, and I saw all my Mormon friends going on missions during the prime of their life, and I'm thinking well, whatever. And then it just, the whole don't masturbate. There's a big emphasis on not masturbating in the church, and it's creepy. It's super gross. They're so wrapped up in sex.
You're supposed to tell your bishop.
Yeah, your bishop interviews you, and hey, So,
Yeah, touch yourself
do
lately.
any touching? Do any naughty touching around there? You did.
Tell me slowly.
And God blesses you
Yeah.
with wet dreams.
Yeah.
And like, so I started, when I came back and I started seeing like that aspect of the church, I started getting kind of grossed out. And then the whole Prop 8 thing happened. And then like what really did it for me was a Mormon friend of mine on Facebook shared this article about a dude who like cheated on her wife with a guy, and then he like abandoned his family, and like now she's this nice little LDS woman with like 3 kids while like just struggling on her own while her husband's out doing all this gay stuff and fell away from the church. And she shares this article and says like, I'm so sick of this gay thing. And it's like, why'd that lady marry a gay guy then? Maybe they should let that guy be gay instead of forcing him to marry a lady. Like, the article is so gross and slanted, and she couldn't see through it. And like, it did it for me. I was like, this is too crazy. This religion's nuts. I'm out. Peace.
We both have similar history as far as like experiencing a lot of different religions, and it was. My house was almost like the set of like some weird sitcom where you just show up and a different situation happens, and that situation was always a different religion. Like, oh, now we're going to the Baptist church. The Baptist church told you the only way to get the devil out is to kill yourself. We're not Baptists anymore. That really happened.
Wow.
I was like maybe Hazel's age. It's about 6, right? And they were speaking in tongues in church. And I was like, I don't know what the hell you're saying because they're speaking gibberish. I'm like, what are you talking about? Yeah. And so I asked them what they were saying. And they said, well, if you don't understand what I'm saying, it means you have the devil in you. And being a little kid, I was like, oh, whoa, I don't want the devil in me. That sounds bad. How do I get the devil out? Well, you'll probably have to die. Yeah. And so naturally, that's not something you tell a young, impressionable child. So we're like, okay, we're done with the Baptist thing. We were Catholic for a while, but it was all in Latin, so it was really confusing, and it never really clicked with our family. And one day we showed up from school, and our missionaries were there, and they had been over a couple of times to, show us really extreme visual aids with cars and pamphlets and stuff.
And the cups.
Yeah, the cups.
Yeah, this is the foundation of the church. And
yeah. And I always thought it was
the leadership, and it didn't make any sense.
Oh yeah, no,
it doesn't. It
no.
just
even to a little kid, I was just like, this is really bizarre. But the thing is I'd always growing up, I always had some sort of religiousness. You know what I mean? Obviously, I had some sort of religiousness in my past. So because of that, it was easier to look beyond the flaws of a church. And then before I knew it, it was like, hey, we're Mormon now. We're planning your baptism. Okay, what's that? They're going to dunk you underwater, and you're going to wear all white. And I was like, that's weird, but okay, sure. And I didn't even understand. The Mormons do what's called sacrament, which is they have basically
a lot of churches do sacrament.
Yeah. Well, the Mormons do it with water and bread, and they pass the bread represents the body of Christ,
just like the wafer,
right?
Catholicism,
right. And then and instead of wine, you get the water, which represents the blood of Christ. I didn't understand that. And so I remember one time I was like, I don't want to eat your stale ass bread. So I passed on the bread. Yeah, I passed on the bread, but then had the water because I'm kind of thirsty.
Yeah, that's what I always did too. I would flip the bread and like spit it out and drop it on the ground because like I don't know. I just imagine some like super old like paper skin hand just ripping this Wonder Bread, and for whatever reason it just grossed me out, and I was like, I can't eat this. And with the little water and those tiny little thumble cups, that was good.
Well, I guess the bishop or the
tap water.
Yeah, the bishop or the church I went to initially was a branch, which is smaller than a ward. So
I went to a branch in Arizona.
Yeah, so a branch is like a small congregation, and then it upgrades to what's called a ward, which is a larger one. and then you have what's called a stake,
which controls the wards.
Yeah, which has like several wards under its leadership. And so I was in a really small congregation, so I don't know if he was a bishop or a president or branch president, I don't know.
Yeah.
But anyways, he noticed, and then like I got chewed out about how I was doing it wrong, and that if I do it wrong, I'm going to hell, pretty much. Which I always thought was weird, because I mean that's what you're
not going to hell. You're just being disrespectful,
right,
to the Holy Spirit, who's trying to talk to you right now about how Jesus died.
And so I was always super confused about it, and just like you, I never really subscribed to the church's teachings. I never really was like, I always felt like an outsider. I liked it because I had friends that went to church, and mutual was super fun, and Mormons have really pretty girls. Let's throw that out there.
There's some hot Momo ladies.
Yeah. So
if you're into modesty,
just want a Nick Mo.
I want some Nick Mo action.
Yeah. So
that means non-committal makeout.
Yeah,
in Mormonese.
Yeah. So I associated, like, that was why I thought it was really interesting to know what you had to say when we had this conversation offline about it, was that it was more of a social thing. And I think that when I started to get older, around the time when I was, when you're in about junior high school, you start attending what's called seminary. Where
I didn't do that.
Yeah, seminary is essentially church during school. You have one of your classes is you just go to the seminary building, and they instruct you about the teachings of the church, the Bible, the Book of Mormon. I've read the Book of Mormon like 3-4 times because of this.
Really?
Yeah, I've actually read the Book of Mormon, the Bible as well.
You read the whole Bible?
Yeah.
Holy shit.
Yeah. I've read the Quran too.
Really?
Yeah. I think you have a copy of the Quran.
I don't.
It's a short, fast read. You can read the Quran, it's super fast.
Yeah. I don't know. I can't read any of them. They have to be read to me. Like another podcast plus, David Michael's My Book of Mormon. Another wonderful podcast.
It takes time.
That man will read the Book of Mormon to you, and it's great. One more?
Yeah. Throw one out there.
What's the Bible one? Thomas in the Bible. This dude will read you the Bible.
Nice.
You no longer, my lazy friends, have to read these goddamn boring ass stupid books. You can have
the crazy shit that doesn't make sense.
Yeah.
Like how did Noah get all the fucking animals?
That's what I love about it, because like it doesn't make sense to me, and it loses my attention span, and I can't make a coherent story out of it. And so people who are either better at reading than I am, or more committed to reading it because they're recording it and have to like make fun of it, like David Michael and Thomas from Thomas in the Bible, like they'll read it and they'll kind of break down what the thing is about and then make fun of it, and it's hilarious.
Right. That's crazy. But
so what about the policy do you hate the most? Like why how does this rub you the wrong way? Like, and what implications do you think this has for the church?
Well, real quick though, before we get on that.
Sorry.
Around the time I was going to seminary was the time that I started to have my own crisis of faith. That I really don't believe this. Not only that, but I started to not really connect with the Mormon friends that I had. It was a different sort of. They went their own way, and then I kind of deviated my own. I started questioning more, and they became more galvanized in their beliefs. And so because of that, that rift, I found myself ostracizing, and because of that, questioning a lot of what they had to say and really applying critical thinking. And when you apply critical thinking and logic to something that has none, then you start to see all the holes, and that's where I lost my.
When you apply critical thinking to something that requires faith,
right,
you suddenly
start to realize.
No way.
Yeah. So, but to your question, what I don't like about this policy of how they're treating same-sex members and same-sex family members is the first thing is that, like, you brought up an interesting thing about it, which I don't want to steal your thunder on that, but
please.
There's a social aspect that these individuals aren't going to get the same church experience because they can go to church, but they'll never be one of them because their family, not by their choosing, is a same-sex couple.
Yeah, and no kid's gonna subject himself to that kind of like.
Right. But the
Stigma.
and he made me think about that, which was like, wow, that really is messed up. But then at the same time, the part that really irks me the most about it is that the part about them being 18 and then having this about their family.
Mhm.
That's the part that irritates me the most about it, in that you're essentially driving a wedge between somebody and their family in order for them to be accepted by your organization or your church. Which, if they're going to your church for the proper right reasons, which is their own personal salvation, the choice between that salvation and their family, it's devastating to think about.
Well, and it's funny too because like, they can, like my family when I was going to church was like a non-traditional family. Like my mom and dad were living together, but they were divorced, and there was all kinds of like really complicated things that the church would look down on. And I was kind of like happy and fortunate to have like that stable environment of the church that I could go to with like really good and reliable people. Not saying that my family was like bad or unreliable, but like the church people were really solid. And it was nice to have that community that I could go to. And like, and basically what they taught me, and one of the things I really actually love about Mormonism even today, is that they don't believe in hell. There is no hell. There are lesser like versions of heaven that you go to.
Well, there's utter darkness that you have to do.
But Jesus has to come down and he has to say, yay, come unto me and follow me. And then you have to say, no, fuck you, Jesus, I'm out of here. Like, I don't care. Now that I have proof that you exist, I deny you. That is literally the only way you can go to the outer darkness, which isn't even actually hell. It's just you're floating around in darkness. So, okay, you're floating in space. That could be appealing to some people. But, like, hell, it doesn't exist. And so, like, my idea, or, like, my understanding was, like, okay, if this church is true, my family continues their heathenistic ways, then, you know, I'll go to a higher level of heaven, and they'll go to a lower level of heaven. And me being in the higher level, I can go visit them, but they can't visit me. But we're all still together pretty much. I'll probably just hang out on the lower level anyways. It's probably more fun. Like, and that's literally how I felt. And so, like, if you're the child, if you're like the straight cis male child of a gay couple in a Mormon community, and you want to be Mormon, like, I mean, one of the good things about the church is you can say, like, well, my parents' relationship isn't necessarily legit, but at least they're going to go to some version of heaven, and I'll be able to see them, and, like, I have no reason to, like, hate or disavow or anything like that. And so I think that's, like, it's a shitty stance, but it's not this. This new policy is really bad. Like, it's okay, it's not okay, but it's less bad to think, like, well, my parents' relationship is still evil, but at least I'll see him in heaven. Now, like, you can't even get to, like, the level of heaven that you need to get to unless you tell your parents to fuck off. Like,
Yeah.
I still love you, but fuck off.
Well, but, you know, and this branches to a larger topic of things within the Mormon church that should give a person a red flag. Obviously, we've talked at great lengths online about the history of Joseph Smith being a con man to begin with. A lot of people don't realize that Joseph Smith was a con man. He was actually
Bryce Blankenagel for all that information.
Right. He was taken to court, civil court. It was a court for being a glass looker, which is a weird charge to think about today. What exactly is a glass looker?
Well, he, as far as I can recollect, I should have done a little more prep work, but what he did is he took his magic rock, which we now have pictures of online, the church acknowledges now. He would take his little magic rock and he'd put it in his hat, and he would wander around on people's private property and looking at the rock like the rock would tell him it was basically like a precious metal detector, and he'd be like, "Oh, right here, there is treasure here, and I don't know how deep it is, but look, you pay me, $50, and we'll dig this treasure up, and it's all yours." And then like they dig and and wouldn't find anything, and like he would just basically, well, we either need to dig deeper, or maybe there's little trolls, little demons, little gnomes that move the treasure around under the earth, and like if you don't get to it in time, they'll move it. So we'll try again tomorrow, and then he'd like skip town with their money. Like and his dad was into like using that fucking rod to like find water. Yeah. They were just all really into like that weird kind of folky woo shit that isn't real. Yeah.
I like the folky woo shit.
Yeah, like downing rods and magic rocks.
Supernatural.
Yeah.
And then of course that spawned into the greatest con of his entire life.
Con man career.
Right. Which was, if I remember correctly, the seer stone itself belonged to a friend of his, right?
Yeah, I think so.
And he stole it from him.
I need to do, like, I should have done a little prep work, but yeah, like him and another, like
a friend.
Because there was like a group of these people that would do this, and like one of them found this rock, and he's like, "Oh, this is an extra special rock." And Joseph Smith was like, "Oh man, you gotta lend me that rock, bro." And he's like, "You better give it back." And like,
never did.
No, and it caused all kinds of problems for him. But like, that's how Joe rolled. And like, I actually find Joseph Smith to be quite the inspiration, because like,
because he's so clever.
He was really clever.
Yeah.
And like,
but essentially within church doctrine, so we'll kind of deviate from from Joe Smith for a second here, and put it into the wide spectrum of church doctrine here, the church official record, if you will, in that Joseph Smith received a vision in the forest.
When he was 14.
When he was 14 years old, he had this vision. After reading James 1:9,
I don't know.
I can't remember, but anyway, so it's that if you lack faith, right? If not, basically ask God and He'll give you the answer, sort of thing. So he went to this forest and he asked God, essentially, "Hey man, what's the deal?" And God came down with himself and Jesus, apparently.
Yeah, and that there's like a few different versions of that story.
And then that's where he says he received divine providence, I guess, that if he goes to this location, there will be a box that contains the golden plates, a couple of the items from the Book of Mormon, like there's the sword of Laban, the Liahona,
the breastplate.
Right, the breastplate of Nephi.
The
greatest Indiana Jones story that was never
and a talking frog or a newt or some shit. Some amphibian talked to him down there too.
And the seer stone was apparently in this. That's where he supposedly was in church doctrine was supposed to have gotten the stone, which then makes him able to translate the plate.
And the story goes that he threw the box under his arm and had to run through the forest and got attacked by people or something.
By demonic forces.
Yeah. Okay, so golden plates, that would weigh like 250 pounds. And this like kid throws this box of gold and a sword and a seer stone.
Why did you use the
sword? And yeah, the sword from the drunken man that freaking Nephi cut the head off.
Yeah, in the Book of Mormon,
it's a great book.
When they're going to the Americas before they get there, they have to deal with this king that has the plates and the possessions and stuff.
He has like these other plates because there's shit tons of plates.
Probably there's
not dinner plates.
Everybody
had metal plates.
Yes, everybody had gold plates apparently in this book.
Brass plates.
Yeah, brass plates. And so they had to sneak around to get them. Come find out Laban was drunk because he had a party. And so God told him to take his sword.
Nephi,
to
slaughter this guy.
Yeah.
And Nephi's like, "But isn't this wrong?" And God's like, "Nope."
Yeah, nope. Now dress like him. and you'll be fine. So there's there's some parts of this book that
It's
are kind of crazy.
wonderful. The whole thing. The submarines, ethers, it's so great.
So this is the official doctrine of the church as far as Joseph Smith's origins. Of course, there was the incident which one of your relatives was part of.
Yeah.
It was the incident where Joseph Smith is actually a martyr.
Jail.
Right. Joseph Smith is gunned down.
Gets in a gunfight in jail. Yeah, and dies. Possibly killed someone. Our prophet murdered someone, got shot, fell out of a window, and died at the end of them. And my uncle gave him the gun.
Yeah.
Like, because back then, jails were just houses.
Yeah.
And people could just walk in and be like, hey, man, you probably need a gun while you're in jail. Here you go.
Yeah.
My uncle was a real cool guy.
Here you go, Joe.
My great uncle.
So then stepping back from that, during this time, of course, then the church was reorganized under the leadership of Brigham Young, who then took them on their exodus from Nauvoo and took them, Nauvoo, Illinois, right? It's Illinois, Nauvoo, Illinois, and took them to the apparent promised land, which was supposed to become the state or nation state of Deseret, is what it was supposed to be. A lot of the places like Las Vegas was founded by Mormons. Of course, Salt Lake City, and places in California and Gold Rush were founded by Mormons because they had this weird policy that once their city got to a certain population, they would create another settlement. And the reason for that was so they could expand out the borders of Deseret. So during this time, there was a huge issue, particularly with polygamy. Of course, they had to denounce polygamy in order to become a state. They were having problems with the U.S. government. They actually waged war against the U.S. government in Utah. And at this point, they had to decide in order to get statehood to relinquish their ties with polygamy, which then, of course, forced some Mormons to go south of the border into Mexico, where the Romneys come from, and the LeBarons, in order to still practice polygamy. So they changed their policy there, which is a big issue with the current policy towards same-sex marriage, because they're like, here's an example of your policy changing. Furthermore, during this time, because of the around this time was the Civil War, or pre-Civil War, determining which state was going to be a slave state and which state was not going to be a slave state. The Mormons were actually pro-slavery to a certain extent, stating that black people were descendants from Cain, who slew Abel. And so, because of that, God cursed them with darker skin. And so, essentially, and cursed them as essentially beasts as well. So, one of the not prophets, but elders of the apostles of the church had actually said. And so the policy was that if you were black or African American, you were not allowed to be baptized for the position in the church. Sound familiar? They were essentially apostates, terrible people, and that did not change. This will blow your mind until 1974.
When Jimmy Carter tried to take away this tax-exempt status.
Tax-exempt status is what made
Suddenly, God called up the president of the church and said, oh man, no, they're not Canaanites. They're just black people. We're cool. We're cool with them.
And then on top of that, the other thing that to add to this was this aspect of it. So they changed their policy on black people within the church, but they, oh man, I had it in my brain. What was the deal? At the same time, people were saying you can't change the rules of the church, and they were basically like anti-miscegenation. I'm trying to say the word like miscegenation, right? Essentially, in layman's terms, it's the intermarriage between white and black people, interracial marriage, and they were anti-miscegenation.
Anti-interracial marriage?
Yes, anti-interracial marriage. Why am I trying to sound smart?
Yeah, I have that problem sometimes too.
Yeah. So even though they have reversed their policy as far as letting blacks into the church, same time, they were still anti-integration or interracial marriage. So it's really crazy.
It's all.
And they buried that in the past.
Yep.
Once it happened, it happened. And then now if you try and talk about it, the Mormons are like, this is whatever.
And that's honestly, that's where I thought the church was going to go with the gay thing. I thought that like with the Supreme Court ruling, like, it's over. It's done. No more fighting. Like, you lost the battle. You spent billions of dollars worth of tithing trying to fight against this, and now
Proposition 8.
And now it's gone. You lost. And so I guess it's a brave new world. We're gonna have to just like quietly and slowly change church policy and be okay with the gays. And instead they tripled down.
Right.
No, we
hate the gays that much.
We really hate the gays. We don't hate the gays. We hate the sin.
Right. You're just apostates in our eyes. So that's what I was going to say. Excuse me. You reminded me. Part of the policy was that the Mormons believed, and we talked about this. I had to look it up because I totally did not believe about it. That if you were black and you became Mormon, that through righteousness, God would lighten your skin and you become white.
It literally says that in the Book of Mormon.
Right.
That like the Nephites like became all dark when they went evil. When they hardened their hearts and stiffened their neck, they became brown. And then
which the Mormons it was like Lamanites in the Book of Mormon. The Lamanites are the Native Americans.
Yeah. Well, basically, so the lost tribe of Israel, but like basically Nephi and Lehi and his family sail over here to the United States or to the Americas, and they start a whole new civilization, and like his brothers become like this group of people called the Lamanites because of Laman is the name of his brother, and Nephi, his group is called the Nephites. And they basically become warring factions through the entire Book of Mormon. And the Nephites go from good to bad to good again to bad again, and blah, blah, blah. And they fight each other. And eventually, like, the Nephites become evil and, like, brown. And then the Lamanites kill them. And so all that's left right now are Lamanites, which are Native Americans. Native Americans are evil people who sailed from Jerusalem to here. That's
right.
Which, I mean, I don't understand how like Native American peoples are okay with this. It's like they're spitting in the eye of their culture. Like, hey, we have your origin story right here, and we have a whole faith about it. Like, and there are churches on our freaking local Indian reservation. And it's like, what the fuck? Like, how? I don't know. If I was
like I was saying, when it comes to the aspects of the Mormon Church, like their treatment of black people, their support of slavery, their treatment of Native Americans, they essentially were like, well, because they're evil people, we continue.
Well, no, they have to convert them all. That's the idea. Is they have to turn the evil Lamanites back into
to soften their hearts.
Yeah. But then they used to believe that they'd turn white again.
But yet they won't allow them to interracially marry in order to make that happen. So it's weird stuff. And then on top of that, you have the treatment of women within the church. They are treated in a manner that is, first of all, one of the things that, I don't know if you're aware of this, but a wife cannot choose her position. Her position in the kingdoms of heaven is not based on her own needs, but her husband's needs. Mm-hmm. So if your husband...
it's a super misogynist.
Yeah. Women, of course, are not allowed to have what's called the priesthood, where it's the endowment from God that makes you holy and that you can perform acts of miracles in the name of God and all that stuff. Only men can hold that within the Mormon Church. So women essentially have all their rights through their priesthood holder male counterpart. The women are supposed to be subservient to that. The man is right. He's getting his doctrines from the church. Is how the children are raised and so forth. But yeah,
Which is their only job, woman.
right.
Take care of the children from the sick and the dying.
Have like 12 children. But then on top of that, again, a woman cannot, her deeds do not dictate her place as far as what level of heaven she's going to go to. So if your husband is that's why you go for return missionaries, because you're trying to go for the closest bit. You're trying to aim for celestial kingdom, which is the highest level, which you did.
And there's 3 levels within that too.
Right.
So the top level being you become a god
Yeah.
and you own your own planet,
Right.
which is sweet.
Yeah. that was the one part of Mormon doctrine that I was like, I get to become a god?
I'm gonna show
Yeah.
God how to do this shit. God, you suck at this.
Yeah.
I'm gonna freaking school you. Watch. No, you are all good people now. Boom. Like,
Yeah.
oh, something's going on in Syria. I can fix that right now. Like, no problem.
Yeah, so it's one of those things that they have a lot of weird quirks in their religion. And it shows a pattern of misogyny, racism, discrimination. So it extends beyond the Mormons. And I think that's what a lot of people need to realize, specifically within the Mormon church, that these members they're not getting this. And so when they, 1,500 people, because of this change, or not change, but basically reiteration of their stance on gay marriage and same-sex marriage and homosexuality, 1,500 members up and quit. They put in their official resignation because of this. Why did it take that? Why didn't it take the treatment of black people in their church, Native Americans, women? The ordained women movement was so profound, and their leader, Katie Kelly, who started this ordained women movement in order to give women a voice within their church, basically was shut down and disregarded and excommunicated.
Yep. I think that's about the time that's what pushed me over the edge, was the excommunication of Kay Kelly and John DeLann. I was like, fuck this. And people, like progressive people, who were speaking up about some of these like terrible policies and like asking questions that the church doesn't want you to ask. And they got thrown out. They got excommunicated.
Right. Because it's one thing to have ex-members like myself and Luke talk about the problems and criticisms that Mormons should certainly get as far as their religion, their doctrine. But it's another thing of John Dillon, if you could give an explanation as to what he did.
John DeLann basically stood up for LGBTQ youth in the church, and he hosts a podcast called Mormon Stories. He, I believe, has a psychology degree, and he's done a lot of research in regards to queer youth in the church, and his podcast has explored like different like kind of progressive factions of the church. He talks to ex-members. He asks a lot of like really hard questions, and he's not afraid to like go there as a Mormon. And then like him and Kay Kelly like really kind of together put the church in this kind of awkward position to like answer the question like, why can't women hold the priesthood, and like why are we so like why do we stigmatize our gay youth so much? Like, what the hell is going on here? And like the church just straight up kicked him out for apostasy,
Excommunicated him.
Yeah.
Just for basically criticizing.
And it was barely, I mean, like, it was freaking criticism on it was like the nicest way to criticize, because Mormons do everything nice. Even Mormons who are criticized nicely.
They criticized with
He didn't want to use his faith. He wanted to see the church move in a progressive way, like, and really for the betterment of the church.
And he still sees himself as Mormon, correct?
I think he sees himself as a Mormon, like as much as Seth Rogen sees himself as a Jew, like a secular Mormon.
Okay.
Like I don't know. I'm kind of like talking out of my ass here, but like
It'd be interesting.
He knows a lot about the faith. I think that culturally he would describe himself as a Mormon, but I don't know if he necessarily believes so much in the doctrine.
Right. So I think we pretty much, we pretty much hit that issue on the head in the sense of dissenting voices. That's why the church, I think, ultimately is why they're doing this treatment of basically galvanizing their stance on the homosexual community. Because if you distance your members from that group of people, as in, if you want to become a member, you have to disavow your family and essentially hurt their feelings and no longer have connections with them in order to become a member. You no longer have the connection. So it's easier to think of them as sinners. Think of them as the other. It's us versus them. And so it's limiting the amount of dissenting voices within your organization. Don't agree with us, we'll kick you out. That's what the Mormon Church, I think, is doing. And so, man, what are your thoughts, your final thoughts?
Yeah, I would agree with that. I think that they want to protect the congregation who already falls in line with like the way the church feels, and they want to it's basically just a club of uber conservatism. They don't want to progress. They don't want to accept these people with these radical ideas because everything's going just swimmingly for them. And so, really, what's the worst thing that's going to happen if they shake off all the people who probably aren't paying tithing anyways? If they get rid of all those annoying dissenting voices, and then they can kind of pretend like they're in crisis mode and that their faith is being challenged, and it's gonna take the really faithful people to stand steadfast and
just like the people that are trying to get the Armageddon to take place, they now have their self-fulfilling prophecy.
Yep, they're not losing anything that is valuable to them, and so I think really it's not a bad move for the Mormon Church. It's a bad move, but it's not a bad move for them and from their aspect. So, and
when 1,500 of your members decide to up and quit, it says something.
I bet 1% of them are actually paying tithing though. So
that's true.
It doesn't matter. They were all people who didn't give a shit anyway.
Yeah, we'll just get Mitt Romney to pay more. It's okay.
Yeah. They'll help Mitt Romney's career so he can pay 10%, and that 10% will be just that much more.
With that, man, we'll go ahead. I'll let you plug those websites, those podcasts, so people can know where to find them.
Oh, yeah. If you want to learn more about Mormonism, definitely check out Naked Mormonism. That's one of the most informative podcasts about the history of the church, history of Joseph Smith. It's hilarious, it's fascinating. And then there's My Book of Mormon by David Michael. He just reads the Book of Mormon. Right now he's in the last book, The Doctrine and Covenants, and Bryce Blankenagel from Naked Mormonism is co-hosting that show with him, and that's really great. And then check out Mormon Stories, the John DeLenz podcast, which is awesome in its own right. It's kind of Mormon centric. It's made for people who maybe are a little more informed in Mormon culture, but he goes all kinds of different places, so it's definitely worth listening.
For sure, man. We definitely went a little long today because it's huge, gigantic issues. Of course, the issue of the ISIS attacks on the Western world, not just Paris, but also Beirut, also the Russian plane being shot down. Whether you call them Daesh, ISIS, ISIL, whatever you call them, Daesh. All these instances are tragic. I know we support and provide solidarity for France because of our connections to France and for allies. But keep in mind, the refugee crisis is taking place. Don't judge them based off of this incident. And then furthermore, learn more about Mormonism. I'd like to thank Book or Eric or call them the names with Dash. Call me Dash. Yeah. I'd like to thank you for coming on, for filling in for Scott this week. He might be filling in a little bit more because Scott is, of course, his wife is having a baby. She's not in labor right now, but it's a very realistic and soon possibility she might. So he's going to definitely need some time off.
Wish him luck. We love you, Scott. We wish the best for you and your lovely wife. I hope everything goes swimmingly. Second time might be swimmingly. And yeah, and good luck, you guys.
Yeah, so again, be sure to check us out at, I forgot to put the little splash at the bottom here, but we have www.polympompous.com. Check out our website. Check out articles and so forth on there. We also have the Facebook page, which is Facebook.com/pompously political. I always get that mixed up because we have Polypompous and Pompously Political. So Pompously Political is Facebook. You can also check us out at Twitter, at Polypompous. I love it when people tweet me, especially funny pictures. We also have the hashtag Sinful Sandwich Sunday, which I've been slacking on. I haven't been eating a whole lot of sandwiches. I'm trying to lose weight.
I'll try to remember to contribute. We can make healthy sandwiches, you know?
Let's do it.
Yeah. Let's make a baconless BLT.
That's sacrilegious.
It's literally impossible.
That's like,
Let's make an LT.
yeah. If I had to eat that sandwich, I would hope ISIS bombed me. But anyway, yeah. So anyways, so we have hashtag Sinful Sandwich Sunday, where you go to our Twitter page or our Facebook page and post a picture of the delicious sandwiches you're eating for that Sunday to take the focus off the Lord and put it in the good hands of the delicious and sinful sandwich. So go ahead and post that picture. Hashtag Sinful Sandwich Sunday. And yeah, so thank you for listening. Again, thank you, Luke, Eric.
My pleasure. Thank you guys so much for having me. I look forward to next time.
And we don't have Scott here to say take care and keep thinking. So I said it for him there, but have yourself a week. Do you have 40 words?
I bid you adieu.